Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josey. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josey. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josey, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the importance of maintaining a strong cash reserve for your rentals. Let's talk about something that separates the hobbyists from the true professionals in real estate investing, a solid cash reserve. It's not flashy, but it is absolutely essential. Too often, investors get caught up in chasing deals and forget about the financial safety net that keeps their business afloat when things don't go as planned. Whether it's an unexpected repair, a vacant property, or a market slowdown, having a cash reserve can mean the difference between surviving a setback and suffering a major loss. Here are 5 actionable tips to help you build and maintain a strong cash reserve. Number 1, calculate your baseline needs. Figure out the minimum amount you need to cover all your fixed expenses for each property. Think mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities, and basic maintenance. Number 2, set a reserve goal for each property. Aim for at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses per property. This gives you a cushion for the unexpected and keeps you from scrambling when surprises hit. Number 3, automate your savings. Treat your reserve like a non-negotiable bill. Set up an automatic transfer from your business income straight into a separate, dedicated reserve account. Number 4, keep your reserve accessible. Your cash reserve isn't an investment, it's insurance. Park it somewhere safe and liquid like a high-yield savings or money market account so you can access it quickly when needed. Number 5, replenish and review regularly. If you dip into your reserve, make a plan to rebuild it as soon as possible. And as your portfolio grows, adjust your reserve goal to match your new level of responsibility. So, remember, a strong cash reserve isn't just a safety net. It's your ticket to staying in the game, making smart decisions, and seizing opportunities when others are sidelined by setbacks. Protect your business, protect your peace of mind, and keep building that badass legacy. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. Today, we have Adam Hager, a powerhouse entrepreneur with deep corporate and operational expertise who truly understands the challenges faced by busy professionals. As the co-founder of Airpreneur, Adam has helped over 350 clients launch profitable Airbnb businesses using smart automation, allowing them to manage multiple properties with just 3 to 5 hours of work each week. He personally scaled his own Airbnb portfolio from 0 to 19 units in just 12 months and now oversees more than 40 profitable rentals, all without owning a single property. What sets Adam apart is his pioneering zero-property rental arbitrage strategy, which empowers everyday people to generate $5,000 to $10,000 per month in passive income without the need for hefty down payments or mortgages. Today, Adam is here to share how his mentorship and systems are helping professionals break free from the 9-to-5 and achieve true time and financial freedom. So welcome to the show, Adam Hager.
Ooh, thanks for having me.
And I want to make sure I said your last name right.
Yeah,
Hager.
yeah, 100%. Yep.
Perfect. Welcome, Adam. And I have to first thank you because we had to reschedule. I have been knocked on my rear end with an illness, and you are so amazing to reschedule and be flexible. So, Adam, truly thank you for your flexibility. So, tell us a little bit about your background. What did you do before real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into that real quick, just want to thank you for having me on. What you do, it's difficult. I know it's not easy and you give a lot of value, so I'm honored to be a part of it. And
Thank
just real
you.
quick, for anybody listening, go ahead and leave Jen a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. I did mine on Apple Podcasts the other day,
Thank
but
you.
let's get into it. Your question was what again? What I
What
started?
did you do before you got into
Hmm.
real estate?
So I did software sales.
Ooh, okay.
And I did that for 2 different companies. The last company before I kind of transitioned full time into real estate was selling staffing software to staffing companies. It's basically software that helps staffing companies operate their business. So I spoke with CEOs and HR managers of these staffing organizations across the United States.
Fun. And then how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so that's the longer story, but essentially I had always been entrepreneurial. I had been doing other things on the side, but I never had anything that was real concrete that was, you could say, scalable. I was always limited by the amount of time that I had, and I knew real estate was that venture. I was actually on a beach smoking a cigar with my buddy, no joke, on a like basically a boys trip, and he was talking about he was going to get into real estate and he was going to purchase something. And I was like, I like that idea. Let me see what else is out there. 2 weeks later, I uncover the concept of Airbnb and I dive right in. And 2 months after that, I have my first property. So I pretty much went full throttle.
I love that. So, what were looking back when you're getting started in this, what were some of your highs and lows when you were building this Airbnb business?
Oh man. I mean, I've encountered everything. So my first deal I ever got, the first person I pitched my services of what I do, I landed the deal. And to this day, I've never had another person tell me that the first person they ever talked to landed. So I gotta say, I got a little lucky. It's definitely not the norm, but I had practiced my pitch over and over. The second deal I ever got pulled from me 2 days before I was supposed to launch. The owner decided he no longer wanted to do it after I had done all the work. So I went from the high to high to the low to low of like, oh my gosh, do I want to do this? Do I want to keep expanding?
Oh my goodness. Well, we have thrown this word around a little bit here, which is arbitrage. Can you just
Hmm.
lay out exactly? I mean, I'm sure the listeners know what Airbnb is. And when we
Yeah.
say Airbnb, are you being strict just to that platform or do we mean short-term rentals in general?
Yeah, we mean short-term rentals in general. So
Okay.
Airbnb is obviously the most major website for traffic, but
Okay.
there's also VRBO, which you've probably seen ads for. They do a lot
I
of
think they call it
advertising.
Verbo now. I think they
They
rebranded.
changed it.
I
I say it wrong. It's the same thing. VRBO, Verbo, it's fine. I will host on them as well. And then there's also bookings.com. And then
Yep.
there's some smaller ones that I don't really mess with, but those three are kind of the major powerhouses. And Airbnb specifically in the US is kind of the most well known and used.
Yes.
Airbnb arbitrage, which is really what I primarily focus on, is when you sign a lease with the landlord. So it's almost like a typical lease, and let's just say the rent is $2,000 per month. But then you take that property and you list it on Airbnb, and in that month it brings in $5,000. Well, your profit is that $5,000 minus that $2,000 in rent, minus your cleaning costs and utilities.
Yep.
What's left over, that's your profit, and that is basically Airbnb arbitrage.
And I mean, I have learned this through a dear friend of mine. She wrote a book about this, and
Hmm.
one of the biggest, and this was years ago, so this has
Yeah.
been around for a few years. So now landlords kind of know what this is. But the
Hmm.
biggest hurdle was convincing landlords that, because really you're subletting that property
Hmm.
as a short-term rental. So what are some tips that you can do and share with us to convince landlords that
Yeah.
arbitrage is a great way to go for their property?
So if you're a landlord, you want it to be passive. A lot of times people get long-term tenants thinking it's going to be passive, but if you ever owned a property or talked to someone who has and got a long-term tenant, you realize it's not as passive as you thought. Things break, they go to you, and it ends up being more time and money than you originally thought. As a short-term rental company, it's actually truly passive for the landlord. So what you want to do is lead with the positives. And one of those positives is, hey, I'm actually going to handle all the minor maintenance. You're going to get your rent deposited into your bank every single month. You're not going to have to worry about me. Also, I'm a business. So one, I need to make sure your property's in the best condition.
Yep.
And I can't wait if things are broken. I need to fix them right away so I can continue to have guests. If they have a
Right.
long-term tenant, something might be broken and they might not know until that tenant moves out. Now they have to deal with that. That's such a headache. But these are
Right.
all things that you bring to the table. Another large one is that you're a business, not a individual. Individuals can move, families move, things happen. If you're a business and you're making money, you're going to continue to stay with them for years and years and years and re-up the lease because of that. So they don't have to worry about finding another tenant.
So how do you find these arbitrage type properties that would be a good fit
Yeah.
for the arbitrage model, I should say?
So initially, you're starting from scratch, right? You don't know
Right.
anybody, you don't have any leads. So there are two websites that I recommend to find properties. And by the way, you're specifically just looking for properties that people want long-term renters for. You
Right.
don't look for properties where they're asking for short-term rentals. You look for properties where they're looking for a long-term renter, and then you're going to come in and explain the value you bring as a short-term rental company. So I use two sites primarily and recommend to start, which is apartments.com
Right.
and hotpads.com. Hotpads.com is owned by Zillow, which your listeners probably are familiar with. So those two have a functionality on the website for a filter called for rent by owner. That essentially means that the owner themselves has listed the
Ah,
property. So now you can reach out directly to the decision maker, to the person who listed the property, to actually explain what you do and the value you bring, as opposed to a real estate agent or a property management group, which can be more difficult.
yes. And I'm glad you brought that up. And forgive me, I keep clearing my throat. So I'm trying not to do it into the microphone.
Okay.
But that really is finding those mom and pops who have these one-off rental properties. What about, because when I was looking to kind of dip my toe into doing arbitrage, I still haven't done it yet, but it's a very amazing concept, especially for people out there who are just starting, who don't have all the funds for it. So, but finding the mom and pop ones, I kept finding they were owned by, or they were managed by property management companies. And that was kind of a wall where I could not kind of break through.
Yeah.
So finding those individual one-off ones is huge there. So what are some of the setup costs that that's involved? Because these are just properties that you're renting, say a year lease, maybe a 2-year
Yeah.
lease. I'm sure you got to furnish. What are some of the setup costs that you have?
Well, first off, there is the cost for the security deposit. So once you
Okay.
sign a lease, you typically have to pay them a security deposit, which is equal to the price of 1 month's rent. So if rent's 2K, you're typically writing a check for the security deposit for $2,000.
Okay.
That can be negotiated, but that is typical. The next is going to be the setup costs. Now, you obviously have the furniture, which is the bulk of it, but then you also have professional photography, deep cleaning, if you're paying anybody to help you set up the furniture. So I like to give just the total cost, like the all-inclusive costs. So if you have a studio or one bedroom, it's going to be anywhere between $6,500 to $7,000 to fully set
Interesting.
up that property. If you have a two-bedroom, it's probably closer to 8,500. And if you have a three-bedroom, four-bedroom, it can really vary depending on whether or not there's a patio, there's a pool, like what other spaces are actually on that property. Obviously, the larger the property, the more money that you may need to initially invest to get that set up.
And do you recommend people buying used furniture from Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, or do you have like a list of standard furnishings, maybe through Amazon or something like that?
Yep. So I actually don't really recommend buying used for properties
Thank you.
because
Sorry.
for a few reasons. The
I'm
first
so
one
glad you
is,
said that, Adam, because I have
yeah.
stayed in Airbnbs. I'm like, oh, they found this at the curb.
Yeah, I mean, first is like you said, it's just you want them to have a good experience, and like if it's
Right.
something's beat up or old or whatever, like people will know, and it will affect the stay. The second is speed. When you sign a lease, you want to get that property up as soon as possible. If you have to go hunt for a week to find something,
Yep.
it's better to just list it and pay a little more for new furniture. So we actually use Amazon, Wayfair, a few other sites that actually you
Yep.
can create business accounts for. Wayfair has a whole business section where you get discounts and deals, and you
hmm
can have a dedicated rep, and
Yep.
you can order this stuff to the house in order to get it set up and furnished.
And I remember I had a quad in downtown Raleigh that we
Hmm.
furnished all 4 units at one time, and I had to put a post on Facebook saying, hey, if you want to come hang out and help us put furniture together, I have beer and pizza. Like, I was bribing people with beer and pizza, but I did get some people over. But yeah, it's a lot to put those together and putting the furniture together. Do you recommend any like kind of items to stay away from when you're furnishing properties?
Stay away from? I mean, I think it's better to say what you want to make sure you don't cheap out on. So you don't want to cheap out on the bed and the
Correct.
pillows
Yes.
because that's why they're there. They're there to sleep. What you can spend less money on is like a bunch of decorations for the bedrooms because
Okay.
people are there for the major living spaces and they're really there to sleep. So you want to invest more into the living room setup and to the kitchen so that you could have longer term stays as well. So making sure you have all the basic essentials and you don't miss anything. Things like air fryers are good bonus options to have. But then for the bathrooms and for the bedrooms, you can keep them more minimalistic. A sneaky hack here for the bathrooms that people don't think of is you want to buy gray liners and you want to have the plastic inliner. Otherwise, it's going to get moldy. So don't buy white liners because those get
Ah,
dirty and shown way quicker than a gray liner. And you need to make sure you have that plastic inliner in order to prevent any sort of mold. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem pretty quick.
yes. Well said. I tell my students not to buy anything fabric, like fabric headboards, for example. I had
Yeah.
one student who had bed bugs in the headboard.
Oh,
And it was because we teach people to encapsulate the mattress and the pillows and everything like that, so to avoid bed bugs. But the bed bugs got into the actual padded headboard and dining room chairs, things like
yeah.
that, because they're just I go with pleather. We are always pet friendly for ours, and
Mm-hmm.
so pleather is not as expensive as leather, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also easy to get all the fur off and things like that. That's just me personally. Those are the things that I tell people to avoid. So, all right, I could like totally nerd out about setting up Airbnbs because I love everything about it. But I want to hear about you, Adam. How did you go from zero to 19 properties in just
Yeah.
12 months? That is amazing. I want to do that. Can I do that?
You can. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of
Yes.
time. So basically this all started from like January 1st. So like January 1st comes, I'm committed to doing this. In all fairness, I had one property already prior to January 1st. So
Okay.
kind of like 18. But I made a mental commitment to myself that I would just do whatever it takes to expand. Like that was my mental commitment because I was still working 40 hours a week, just like
Ooh,
everybody else in life. You have obligations. Obviously, I didn't have a family at the time, but I had other obligations. So there's always something going on. But what I would do is I have a business partner that I brought into this. His name is Vince, and he's great. He didn't have any prior Airbnb experience, but he was a very hard worker in his job, and we were aligned on our mission. So, like, my number
nice.
one recommendation to people who want to have a business partner is to have a long conversation about where you want to take it, what you want to do, what that looks like, to make sure you're aligned and that you see that they've worked hard in another area of their life. If they haven't worked hard in another area of their life, you shouldn't assume that they're going to work hard with you to help make this happen,
Okay.
right? So I brought him on board, and what we would do is we would actually go to this library once a week and we would do a bunch of outreach to these landlords. And we didn't really have a script, like we didn't have it figured out. We were kind of figuring out on the fly. We were both in sales, so we were kind of going around. We would hear each other take these calls for like hours at a time, go in circles like pitching, and then we would just listen to it and then we'd give feedback to each other. Now,
Nice.
once we scheduled these house tours, that's usually the second step is after you speak to a landlord and there's a whole process you go through and they like what you have to offer and you get all the important questions out of the way. You want to go see the property. So we would schedule 4 or 5 house tours in a given city. And then that next weekend, we would drive up to bang them all out. We'd usually sign 1 to 2 of those leases that we liked and like we negotiated. And then the following week, we would drive back to set them up. And we did that on repeat for the first like 8 months of the year, 7 months of the year,
So, how far away were these properties?
4 hours.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
So we would have 4 hour car rides where we'd go there. We would go up just to see the house. There's no deal. So go up there to see the house, hope we get a deal, land it, immediately do the whole ordering, the furniture, all of that set up, go back, set it up within 2 days, to come back to list it, and then kind of do the same thing over and over again. And then during the week after work, We would do our prospecting, engaging conversations. We would track it. We would give feedback with each other on how to improve. And we just kept doing it. Because I definitely did not do everything right off the bat. Definitely made mistakes. And then later on, kind of improved that process.
So you get one, you get two. Like how did that start? Did it
Yeah.
snowball or just
So
the hustle?
So a lot of times you do get individual deals, but I got some deals where I got two, three at a time
Right.
because the landlord may have owned multiple properties or had like two apartments directly across from each other. And once you have that relationship with them, they're going to continue to offer you more units. What was big for me is about my first 12 properties that year were just like houses or apartments, anywhere from like 1 to 3 deals at once. But then I actually got an opportunity just through calling and hustle for 7 units in an apartment building that were already furnished.
Ooh.
And a previous operator had gone bankrupt because they had gone way too big, way too fast, didn't know what to do to optimize. So we were able to basically steal those units without having to put much money into them up front at all, and immediately add additional 7 units to our portfolio, going from 12 to 19, which is huge, and kind of gave me the idea of, okay, well, how can we do this more, right? We kind of got the single family houses, we got the apartments, which was my recommendation for everybody is to start with that, to
Nice.
understand the process. But at a certain point, if you want to scale more, it's beneficial to go into other areas like landing multiple apartments in an apartment building at once, or doing a large vacation rental that can bring a lot of income. You have a lot of possibilities as a business owner in this business once you kind of get the initial run of it.
And I think that's huge. And as you are in this, and this is something that is evolving more and more landlords are learning about it and more people are getting into this business. I think you're going to find, Adam, more opportunities like that too, where people are like, I'm done. Take all 7 of them. I'm out. So I love that. I think that's a great idea. There's Facebook groups where they're selling short-term rentals fully furnished. And so definitely check those things out. But before you're taking on a new property though, so how do you evaluate the potential of it being a profitable Airbnb?
Yeah, so there's a few things at this point, and just personally, I've looked at hundreds of deals for students, et cetera. So I have a little bit of an intuition now just from doing it. But we usually use a software called AirDNA. And
Okay.
AirDNA is a software that allows you to see what all the other Airbnbs in a given market are making. So it evaluates their performance. How many days of the year they open, how many days of the year they're booked, what is the revenue, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. We can see the listing. So first thing we can do is we can look through that and we can see all of the ones that are maybe comparable to the property we're looking at. Just like in other forms of real estate where you're trying to estimate the value of a house and you're looking at comparables, you're doing the same thing here. There's a way to look at comparables for a given property you're potentially going to take. And you're going to see, okay, does it have the right amount of amenities? Is it the right location? What are the ones around it that are similar making? And then we can plug that information into a calculator we have that calculates basically all of the costs we know we're going to have to understand, okay, what is our ROI in year 1, year 2, year 3? What is our monthly cash flow? And do we have to negotiate it all? Maybe we have to go back and then say, hey, we can only do this if you take off $200 in rent, or we can only do this if you give us 6 weeks upfront free, which is actually a lot more common than people may realize.
Wow.
Getting free rents. I've actually gotten free rents on every single property I've ever had. And when I've done these multi-unit deals, I've gotten 4 months free on a 2-year lease, which
Nice.
is huge. And it's a benefit of this model is that the more you take, usually the more you get back.
Huge. And so the Air DNA, I question it at times because a lot of people that are in this industry are going back to that mom and pop type situation where it's their vacation rental and it's for their family and they stay there 3 months in the winter. So I feel sometimes that data is skewed a little bit because people don't run their business like business owners like we would be. So me personally, I like looking at actual Airbnb, looking at calendars and seeing what was blocked off. If I could see that there's 3, like maybe sometimes they're doing midterm rentals and they'll accept midterm rentals and also trickle in some short-term rentals in there as well. So how do you really trust that data? being
So
handed over.
you make good points, and
Yeah.
these are all the little things that I also look at.
Good.
So with AirDNA, you get again, you understand the total revenue and how many days of the year they have it open. But I can look at their listing and I'll know in 2 seconds whether or not it's a professionally run listing or a
Okay.
one-off person. I can also click on their profile and see how many other properties they have. If someone has 50 properties in a city, they're a professional host, they're
Yep.
making money in the city. Otherwise, they wouldn't have 50 properties. So now it's just determining of those 50 properties which ones are doing the best, why are they doing the best, can we find something similar, if not, how can we improve it? Because you'd be surprised, sometimes you find listings and people may not believe this. I see listings that do $100,000 a year in revenue, which even if you have decently high expenses, you're still profiting very, very well, and their listing isn't even complete, Jen. Like, it's not even complete. I swear it's no joke. I swear it's no joke. And I see this way more often than you think, where they didn't even complete the listing.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
you can make money sometimes just having a nice property, but not even know how to really market it. You can make money.
Yes. I mean, like I said, I love this industry and it makes me happy. I always stay in Airbnbs as well myself. So, but going back to the actual property, do you avoid HOAs? Do you buy in neighborhoods? Do you do
hmm
more destination type settings? What are you looking for
hmm
an ideal Airbnb?
Yeah. So if I'm targeting houses, I usually look at suburbs of
Okay.
cities because it's close enough to the city, there's enough traffic, and large enough that you can hold more people. A general rule of thumb with short-term rentals is the more people you can hold, the more you're going to make because there's just more people that can pay and go there, so you can charge more. So those are usually in the outskirts of cities. In some cities like Philadelphia, you can obviously find 3, 4 bedroom houses available for rent there, which is great. That's close by. There is another model that we also do, and people should be aware of, besides arbitrage. That's actually even easier for people to get started with, and that's called co-hosting.
Okay, good.
And that is essentially where you go to a landlord and you say, "Hey, landlord, I'm going to manage the property for you, and we can split the profits as long as you pay for everything." So the landlord pays for all the furniture, the utilities, the cleaning, but you split the profits. And you may ask, well, why would a landlord do that, pay for everything? Well, the reason they're doing that is because they actually end up making a lot more money than they would from a typical long-term
Right.
tenant by doing that. And that's where vacation rentals come in, because vacation rentals are some of the best properties for you to what's called co-host, because you can make a high amount of income by leveraging somebody else's property without having to necessarily pay a $4,000 or $5,000 rent. They're paying it and you're just getting a percent for managing. And I have multiple of those as well to kind of diversify the portfolio, and they
Nice.
can be equally as profitable.
And hopefully they allow you to select the furniture because I've heard nightmare stories about, oh, yeah, well, I got grandma's old sofa here that we'll throw in there.
Yeah, this is red flags here. So if you try to work with somebody and your whole job is to make it passive for them, right? That's kind of the
Right.
main benefit of doing this as a co-host. And they say, "Well, I want to do this, I want to do that." Like, you have to set your foot down right there and
Good.
say, as example, let's say you were that landlord. I'm picking on you, Jen. Let's just say, "Hey, hey, hey, Jen, I love that you're enthusiastic of making this as best as you can. Really, the value we bring here is we have our own system of what we know works, and we want to make this passive for you. So in order for this to work, we really need you to trust us and kind of really take a step back and trust that we're going to optimize this for you. Because at the end of the day, we only get paid if you make money. So
Good.
we want to make you as much money as we can."
Well said, Adam. Young man, that is very, very good. So HOAs. Do you ever
HOAs, pass. HOAs are pass because
hard pass?
you can't convince an HOA. Like, it's not worth your time. It's speed is another big component of just business in general, speed. And trying to convince an HOA is not a speedy process, and it's very likely going to result in you failing. So it's unfortunate. It happens. It's happened to me. It happens to students. You just move on from the opportunity. Maybe you learn something about the market and you continue on looking for other deals.
All right, so little switch in direction here. What in these areas, because they're within 4 hours of you,
hmm
how do you
hmm
find good cleaning teams and a good handyman? Those are like the two
Yeah.
much needed team members that you need in different areas. So how do
So
you research and find the best?
what I don't recommend you do for handyman is go on an expensive site like TaskRabbit. what I don't recommend,
Right.
because you're going to just overpay so
Yes.
much. What I do, and I wish I could say there's an easier solution, but it's a little bit of trial and error. I post a $5 Craigslist ad and I talk to everybody and I see how well they communicate, how long they've been in business, and I give them a small task to do and I see if they do it on time and promptly. And if they do it,
Nice.
I give them more and more. And eventually we develop that relationship and then they get my full business in that given area. And I incentivize them. I say, hey, look, I got this one property, right? I'm going to have others. We are going to continue to expand. So if things go well, you will be my guy. I will continue to give it.
Awesome.
And that's worked very well. But
And
sometimes you do
cleaning.
have to go through one or two. Cleaning, you can do two things, three things actually. There's multiple ways.
They can make or break your whole
They make or break it.
everything. Yes.
Yeah.
So they are very important.
I will tell you this, starting off small, you won't have as much leverage with pricing with a cleaning company. But as you grow, you can very much reduce your rates because you're giving them more of your business. So if you're somebody who's really ambitious and you know you're going to give in a city, you can start that relationship. And 6 months from now, when you have 6 properties, you can renegotiate. There's nothing
Good.
wrong with renegotiating.
Right.
So 3 ways. First way is Google. And that is just Googling cleaning companies in the area and calling them. Now, I have a list of questions that I ask every cleaning company to see if they're going to be a good fit. These questions talk about, for example, what do they put on their checklists? What are their rates? Have they worked with short-term rentals? Like, what is their background? How far were they away from XYZ city? Sometimes these people can live 30 minutes away. That can be a problem. I also just give them scenarios. Oh, if XYZ happens, what would you do? Like, I don't necessarily know if they're going to give the right answer, but I want to see their thought process. Have they thought about it? Are they flexible? Are they flexible with dealing with the situation? Or are they going to charge me every time they have to clean the inside of a fridge, which we don't want?
Can I say something about that? I
Yeah.
had a cleaning team where one of our units was a 2-bedroom, and she said, "Oh, this group was extra messy, so I have to charge you an extra $50." And I said, "Well, hold up, because last week I only had one person stay in a 2-bedroom and you didn't give me money back." So I put in my contract with our cleaning team, I want same day cleanings. When the guest checks out, I want same day cleaning, because you never know if someone will reach out and have an emergency. Because I also do not accept same day bookings. Just because those people are not organized, and if it's a situation, maybe Airbnb reaches out and says, "Hey, we need to plant this person somewhere else." And also I have them say that their fee is their fee, because 90% of the time, people staying in Airbnbs are going to do a nice job cleaning up after themselves, taking the garbage out if that's what you ask. But I'm not going to pay extra for extra cleaning. So how do you handle stuff like that?
Yeah. So I actually had one. So in some areas, there's more cleaning opportunities than less. There's not some cities, some areas, they have a lot of companies, some don't, right? So you have to be a little bit flexible. Maybe it's an independent contractor or whatever. I had one that kept trying to charge me for little stuff, like over and over again. And it's because she was broke. I'm just being honest. Like, she would constantly, if a red flag with the cleaning company is if they complain to you about their personal life. If they talk about their personal life, you should run away. Because if they can't separate it, it's going to come up in them trying to charge you for things to try to do this. And then they're going to leverage their personal life to try to make you feel guilty about it. And that's just not good business. Like, it's not a personal thing. Like, you want them to do well, but it's business at the end of the day. So that's why I do these interview questions too, to see how they communicate. What do they say? They drop flints. Is there any red flags? So anyway, she was doing that, and I gave her 3 warnings. I was like, this is unacceptable. You have to send a picture, blah, blah, blah. It has to be approved by our team. It's happened again, happened a 3rd time. I was like, all right, I'm letting you go. I let her go. I just let her go and found somebody else. The new person I had, no issues.
Nice.
Had them now for 1.5 years on that particular area. So sometimes you deal with that, and you kind of have to learn a little bit through trial and error of what those red flags are and what you can tolerate and what you really can't tolerate, and put your foot down, because at the end of the day, it's a business, and yes, they need to make money. You need to make money, but they are replaceable if they are causing more problems than they're solving.
Well said. And I love who I have right now. Her name is Jen. Shout out to my girl Jen in the mountains. Yes, same name, in the mountains of North Carolina. So nice. I love her. She does a great, great job. All right. So clearly, you are so good at this, and you have then expanded and created a mentorship, and
Hmm.
you have mentored over 350 clients.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what Airpreneur is and how does it work?
Yeah.
How do the listeners find you? How do they
Hmm.
get into the game? And clearly, I mean,
Yeah.
I gave you some tough questions, so I know you know your stuff, Adam. So
Appreciate that.
let's hear about Airpreneur now.
Yeah, well, the way you can find me is pretty easy. I'm mostly on Instagram, so you can chat me, message me anytime. I post content to Airbnb tips, tricks, all of that consistently, and that's Adam underscore Airpreneur. Jen, you'll probably post that as well, as
Okay.
listeners can see below. But Adam underscore Airpreneur. What we do is we help people in a mentorship. Now, the difference between a mentorship and course, because there's a million courses out there for everything, and I'm not really anti-course because they can be valuable. In fact, I literally was listening to a course this morning on midterm rentals before we had this podcast because it's a sector I'm interested in learning more about and getting into. But the difference between a course and a mentorship is with a course, you're just consuming content. It would almost be like if you had a really nice YouTube playlist and you went through, you're just learning content.
Okay.
But if you have questions or specifics, it's not necessarily tailored to you, it's general content. A mentorship is where you work with somebody or a group of people, and yes, you get the content, but you also have access to them 24/7, or and then you have these calls where they help you learn some of the skill sets. So what we do is we have a mentorship where we help people from scratch. Sometimes they have some properties, but most people don't. And we help them build a stable Airbnb portfolio through arbitrage and co-hosting over a year that they can automate that and they can use that cash flow however they like, whether that's for quitting their job or reinvesting into other forms of real estate. And the big part of that is we actually help them develop the skills. So you said this earlier, one of the bigger things is how do you talk to a landlord? How do you convince them
Yes.
what you do? Because it's challenging. Like you're
Yep.
doing it from scratch. I told you how me and Vince were basically trying to figure that out ourselves early on. Like you're gonna fall on your face at first when you're doing it. I actually give my script away for free, and I'm gonna give it to all the listeners here as well in a sec, and I'll tell you guys how to get that. But a script is just a script. So one of the things we do is we actually role play with every
Nice.
single student to help make sure they know how the conversation, they know where it's going to go, they know what to look for, so that by the time they do talk to a landlord, they're confident, like they're ready to go out there with that. So that's kind of the main difference, and we focus. And of course, we have a community of people now because we've been doing this for years that have a lot of units that are really helpful, and that is definitely good. And that comes to the funding too. I think what people don't realize is that, and well, I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit of funding, but you can sell deals. Like if you find a deal that is really good and for some reason you don't want to take it because it's across the country, or you don't want to take it because you just launched one and you used your funding or whatnot, you can sell that to another student because we'll verify that deal and we don't take profits on that, right? If you sell it for 3K, it's yours, but we can verify that the deal's good and you can present that. And a lot of people, this as an investor, like people want to invest in deals that make money as long as it's proven that it's going to make money, which is a cool aspect of that.
I love that you do that because I do come across deals sometimes where I'm like, ugh, this is such a great deal, but I just don't have the time or
Yeah.
bandwidth to add this to my business right now. So I love that you do that. So let's get into the whole startup costs and
Hmm.
financing
Hmm.
and everything. So what's the biggest misconception people have about these startup costs? And do you have any tricks for financing strategies?
Yeah. Well, the first misconception was that you had to buy a property, which we've
Right.
kind of talked at this point that we
Yep.
know that's not true. The second misconception is that they have to use all their own capital to get it started, and they have to have like $20,000 just sitting around, like ready to deploy. I didn't have that when
Right.
I started before I was doing this, so most people don't. Some people do. If you do, great, you're going to be able to expand quicker. But what we actually do is we leverage something called business credit. And how it works is as long as you're a US citizen and you open up a company, usually an LLC, limited liability company, you'll get back from the state what's called an EIN number, employment identification number. Once you have that, you can use your EIN number to apply for what's called 0% interest business credit with Chase and Amex. It's
Okay.
essentially credit cards, but they're business credit cards, not in the personal sense. So you can get 0% interest for an entire year on a business credit card, and you can get 20, 30, $40,000 in that card. And then you can use that card to fund your properties while getting the initial bonus offer, which is usually anywhere from $800 to $1,200, while getting cash back and using your profits then pay down the debt on that card. And you have an entire year to do that. Now, the first question I usually get is, okay, well, few is how do I know how much I'm going to get? Like, how do I
Right.
apply? How do I do that? Well, it's not for everybody, right? This is a good option, but it's not going to work for every single person. You have to have a credit score of above 700
Okay.
to really know that you're going to get substantial funding. And there's just a few things you have to do right when you set up your LLC. You have to classify it a certain way. You want to maybe have a business bank account that's already established with some money in it. So there's a few things you have to do before you apply. But if you do that correctly, most people that have a score of at least 700 or above will get business funding. Will they get $100,000? Probably not. And not everybody will. Some people do. But you'll get enough that you can start your first like two or three.
Do you ever use private money lenders in the beginning?
I don't. I've done investments from other students
Okay.
or other people because I just know a lot of people from that capital, but I haven't done anything like that.
Okay.
Not to
I was
say
just
it doesn't
curious.
work, just I haven't done it.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of business credit, and another reason is that let's just say that I said there's 0% interest for a year. So a lot of people's
Right.
questions are, oh my gosh, well, what if I don't pay it off after a year? What happens? Well, you can apply for a new business card and transfer the balance over,
Yep.
and it basically restarts. Now first of all, you're never going to have to do that if you properly analyze a deal and you know it's going to make money, because the payback periods, meaning the amount of time it takes to pay off the initial startup costs, is usually way less than a year. So you shouldn't be encountering that issue. But if you ever did, you're not screwed. You'd be able to transfer it over, which is why I think it's a really solid way for people to get started. And I now at this point have gotten over $200,000 in business credit because
Nice.
you can basically keep applying. So every time I expand, you can keep applying, keep using it, and continue doing that way. And now I use a combination of cash as well, but I definitely did not for the first year. I was solely using that.
And that no interest is huge,
Huge.
especially when you're starting out. So, all right, I love that. So, going back to Airpreneur, do you have any success stories of a student or two or five or whoever who maybe was doing this as a side hustle and has
Yeah.
since been able to quit their 9 to 5? Give us some
Yeah.
examples.
So I have a few. So I have a couple, actually, married couple, Sonny and Greg. And when they came to me, they had zero. So they were actually starting from scratch. They were in the US at the time, and they very quickly started getting properties. They actually got a fourplex at once. So they kind of went from like 0 to 4, which is a pretty good start. And they kept going. After a little over a year, they had 15 properties,
Wow.
and they quit their jobs, moved to Portugal. They loved the community so much they wanted to get involved, and now they're actually some of my coaches that work with the students. So now they work with
Nice.
them consistently as well. They've been fantastic, but they live in Portugal, so they're not even close to the properties, right? It just proves that you can kind of manage everything remotely, which is fantastic. I have another student. Her name is Nina. She's a full-time teacher, has kids from Brooklyn, and she did come to me. She did already have 3 units, but they weren't performing that well and she didn't know how to expand. So we optimized and she was able to expand to now over 20 some units
Wow.
as of this point and automate it. And she was able to get additional investors and all the people, because once you prove it's working and things are working, people want to work with you, obviously. Like they're happy to invest with you once they know it works. So
Absolutely. So, for the listeners who are maybe still on the fence, what's a piece of advice that you'd give them to help them take their first step towards this financial freedom?
I think it's more of a mental commitment. Like you
Yes,
have to commit to yourself that you want to do it and that you're just going to keep doing it until it works. And that's not even Airbnb. Like I don't care if you want to do another part of real estate or whatever. There's a lot of great things, but whatever you do, you have to make the mental commitment that you're just going to keep at it until it works, because the model is proven. It's not like you're making a new startup of a software that no one's ever heard of, right? You're not Mark Zuckerberg, and I know most people can't be, but you're doing a proven model. So proven models work. It's just you have to develop the skill sets to make it happen. So not quitting, being like, hey, for the first 6 months, no matter what happens, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to dedicate X amount of time every week. And I'm not going to put so much pressure on myself about the results. Sometimes people get a little upset if they're comparing themselves to others and
right.
how fast they're going. But you got to realize that everybody starts somewhere else. Before I did this, I may have scaled to 19 properties in 1 year, but I had tried 6 other businesses. Someone who's never tried a single business, they get to 4 properties in a year. I mean, that's a massive win. That's a
Sure.
massive win. So you got to be cognizant of that and try not to compare yourself.
So I'm hearing you say take massive action. And I think that
Yeah.
is a very good way to start taking that first step towards financial freedom. So before we go to this second part of the podcast here, Adam,
Hmm.
one more time, how do people find you and
Yeah.
get more
Yep.
information on joining Airpreneur?
So everybody who's watching this, obviously, Jen, I know you give a lot back to everybody. So I wanted to do the same here. There's two things that I'm going to give you guys. If you go to my Instagram, Adam_Airpreneur, right? She'll also have it linked, and message me the word launch. You message me the word launch. I have an automated thing. So like you'll automatically get this. I'm going to send you guys two things. First is that script, that entire script of how to speak to a landlord, what to pick. There's no hold back. Like that's exactly literally everything I do, how I handle it. It's all there for you. The second is going to be what I call the market launch blueprint, which is a 5-step process on how to find a profitable market near you because people may not be near the shore. They may not be near the large city. So they might not be sure if it's profitable. This will ensure before you start. So at least you have clarity on, okay, well, this is a good area to start. I'll give you both of those things. It's 100% free, fully in depth. You just got to message me the word launch at Adam_underscore Airpreneur, and it'll automatically get sent to you. Of course, if you have any questions on that, like I obviously go on my Instagram, so you can message me and we can have a conversation.
But if they are sold, they're like chomping at the bit, they are ready to start. Where do they go to sign up for your mentorship?
Yeah, they can still DM me on Instagram and just say, hey, look, I want to have a conversation. I want to better understand what this looks like. And I can send you guys like a calendar link and we can have a one-on-one call like this and I can walk you through everything. So,
Well, I am very impressed with you, Adam. This is such a great business and I love it. I love having places that I myself can go visit and stay and but make money as well. So this has been amazing. We are going to go to the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes Adam Hager a badass, which you are. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What is
mhm.
a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
So I obviously was in sales, right? I was doing software sales, et cetera. It's kind of like my foundational skill I was able to bring. I read this book, Jordan Belford, the guy from Wolf of Wall Street. People love him, people hate him, but he has a book. It's called The Straight Line Selling System. I learned a lot from that book. Do I do everything exactly? No, but it was a really good starting point for me to apply to my corporate career at the time to get better at sales and do well. And I think if someone is in a sales career and they're trying to get better, I think it's a really good book. So the Jordan Belford Straight Line Selling System.
Excellent. And real estate is sales, whether people want to
Hmm.
believe that or not. Everything about real estate is
Yeah.
sales. All right. The first A in badass is for advice. You have given us excellent advice throughout this entire
Mhm.
podcast, but what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, I think it's that you need to believe in yourself. And that is such a vague thing. People say it, but like most people, and including myself, like you can do all of the research, you can do the work, you can put it in and still not believe in yourself. And it's not going to work. Like you can outwork somebody, but if you don't believe in yourself, the person who believes in themselves way more is just gonna get luckier. Like opportunities are gonna happen because they have that, I'm gonna say aura, they have that vibe. And I think you need to believe in yourself. And if you don't, the best way to believe in yourself is to basically set daily things for you to accomplish and then do them, even if it's only two things. Like keeping commitments to yourself is one of the best ways to help start building that belief.
Keeping commitments to yourself. I love that. All right. The D in badass is for drive. You are a very driven young man. I keep saying young man because I feel like I'm 3 times your age, but what drives you to be successful, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just what's possible. We all have the same amount of time every single day.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody wants to live the life the way they want to live it, right? Whether that's with their family, having time, or traveling, or buying things, or exploring. And I have a natural curiosity for business in general. So it's just how much can I do? How much can I learn? How much can I impact? All of those things, I enjoy it. And because I enjoy it, I'm going to do it more. So I think that's really what's propelling me.
And I believe that 1,000%. All right. The second A in badass is for
Mhm.
aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So, what is a goal you are currently working on?
Completely changing this away from business. I actually speak very conversational Chinese.
What?
So yeah, 我会说中文啊. But that's kind of my fun thing. Like if I have time, I'm not doing anything, I have a tutor, like I'm pretty serious about it. There's a certain level I'm trying to hit where you can take a test. It's called HSK 5. I'm working towards that right now. So I'm looking to hopefully by the end of this year, hit that level.
Oh my goodness. That blew my mind. I was not expecting that. I think that is absolutely so cool to have that talent to speak other languages. That is amazing. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. You are definitely a systems guy, but what systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
This one's really simple. I use a software called Notion to keep myself organized with all my stuff. I also have my to-do list. So I just write down my to-do list the day before, every night before the next day. And then I relook it in the morning if I want to fit things or change it. I think most people don't even really write it, or maybe they don't believe in to-do lists, but I do. I'm definitely a proponent. I think the way to make a to-do list work is to know yourself of how much you actually can get done, because I finish everything. So I use Notion to do that, and I set an appropriate amount of things that I'm going to accomplish. Another general rule with this was systems and getting things done. It's better to focus one day on accomplishing one major project than to do 5 different little things.
Right.
So if I'm going to create content, and that's like the importance of the day, I will basically not stop until I finish creating the content, even if that means I'm not doing a bunch of other little things.
Very well said. Well, Adam, I could talk to you all day. I love nerding out over short-term rentals, and this has been such a great conversation. But the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to Adam Hager?
That's a tough question. I think one, it definitely means you're making money doing what you enjoy. I don't know if you can get around that. I don't know if you can make a bunch of money, but you don't like it, and that's success. So I think it's not just like, oh, you're making all this money. I think it's you're making money the way that you want to make it, that you're enjoying it. I think that's huge. I think another portion that I consider success is just, do you have relationships with people who are helping you grow? Like, can you talk to them about what you're passionate about, and maybe they're ahead of you in some areas and they're like supportive. The last thing you want is to say, I got an Airbnb property to your friend, and your friend be like, oh, is that going to work? Like, aren't you worried about losing money? Like, that is the last thing you want to hear from that. So having those good people who are going to be supportive.
Yes. What is it? You're supposed to surround yourself with 5 people who are,
people.
Yes. Yeah. I think is it John Maxwell? I'm telling you, I'm still brain dead from this,
I don't know.
from whatever medication I have. But Adam, you are fabulous. I love your energy. I love everything that you said. You really do know your stuff. I put you through the ringer asking you some great questions, and you had some excellent else and I do appreciate your time today. So Adam, thank you so much for being, and one more time, give us that Instagram account.
Yep, Adam_Airpreneur. Just message me the word launch so you guys get those freebies I mentioned earlier.
Wonderful. And thank you for being here today with us, Adam.
No worries. Thank you, Jen, so much.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josey by visiting therealjenjosey.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.